Next, we're going to put the outer ring on. The 4-point bearing is in place. The throat funnel insert is all in place. So we're going to put the outer ring on. Now it's important you put everything together with no seals and no gasket. So we're just going to put all metal parts together with no gasketing or sealing to get our shimming proper. So at this point, we're going to actually install the outer ring now. And we're going to drop this on there carefully. And line up your bolt holes. And we're going to put these 6 bolts in. Nice clean holes. I cleaned them out real good. Like I said, you want to have all your threaded holes nice and clean. It just makes everything more precision and easier to assemble. And you can just snug these up. You don't have to go crazy tight. Just snug everything up so all the surfaces come together. Just double check all the way around. And one other thing too, we're not putting any shims in anything either. So no shims and no seals at this point. We want to make sure all the surfaces are flat together, and then we're going to check our gaps with our feeler gauges. Next, we're going to take our catch ring and we're going to put the catch ring on. Again, making sure all these surfaces that contact are extremely clean. So be very careful with this part. It's very fragile. So we're going to just drop this right onto the 4-point bearing. Just like that. And put our 4 bolts in place. And snug them down. Snug them up. Nothing crazy, just snug them up. And now we're going to take our feeler gauge readings. Next, what we're going to do, we've got all of our catch ring bolted down. Now we need to check our gaps. And there's 2 gaps that you're going to check. And the first gap is going to be right here between the inside diameter of the catch ring and the face of the funnel insert. That's the first gap. The second gap is going to be the outside diameter of the catch ring to the outer ring right here. These are the areas that you're going to be checking with your feeler gauges. Again, this is all assembled with no seals, no sealing profile at all. You want it all without seals. So what we're going for as far as dimension here is 10 thousandths. You want a 10 thousandths gap all the way around here. And it's pretty common to get a little bit of a fluctuating measurement around here. When these machines are brand new in a factory and everything's put together brand new, yeah, it's pretty typical to get a real critical, nice precision measurement everywhere. But as these machines are used and abused and things fluctuate, you might get some varying, couple of thousandths of difference here, maybe from one side to the other. So with this all put together right now, I'm able to get a 10 thousandths, and this is with no shims in anything. This is no shims in anything. So I can get a 10 thousandths feeler gauge all the way around here with no problem. So this is actually okay right here. This is good to go. So if I bump it up to an 11 thousandths feeler gauge, there's an 11. It kind of hangs right there, and then it kind of hangs right here. So my smallest gap is 10 thousandths. So this inside gap is fine. Now on the outside gap, I've already checked that. And another thing I wanted to let you know is to make sure you have something to write on to log your measurements. That's just going to help you, because if you don't have the right measurement, you need to document that and then figure out how much shim that you need to shim it accordingly. So for example, if this gap in here was under 10 thousandths, you're going to have to log that measurement here and calculate how much shim you would have to put underneath of the catch ring. And the same thing on the outside. If this gap here is not correct, you need to document it here on your outer gap and then do your calculation of how much shim would go underneath of this outer ring to bring it up and close that gap. If this gap was too large, to close this gap, you bring this outer ring up with shims. Okay, so there's two things that you shim. You can shim the catch ring up and you can shim the outer ring up to bring your air gap into dimension. But with this particular assemble right now, we are at 10 thousandths all the way around on both sides. Let's see, here's a 10. So I will pass this all the way around. This goes all the way around our outer gap with no problem. And you want to make sure you check it all the way around. And so I'll try an 11 here just to show you. I think we had one area that that's a little tight and that's a little tight. So we get a 10 thousandths feeler gauge to pass all the way around. Everything's good. So this particular unit is not going to need any shims at all. I will show you where you would put the shim. So I'm going to take this back apart right now and show you where the shims go. And also we will put the sealing profile in the outer ring, get that fastened back down, and then we will put our spring energized seals in. If you need to shim the catch ring, I have the catch ring removed. This is the underside of the catch ring. You would use these shims here. These are available in two different thicknesses. And what you do is you take the shim, put a little bit of food grease on this surface, and then stick your shims to it. And then you can put this back down over the 4-point bearing. You can also stick them to the top of the 4-point bearing if you choose. You know, there's not a right or wrong way. I just like them up in this pocket so they don't get hung up if they're hanging over the edge of the 4-point bearing. If you put them up in this counter bore here, they stay put. So that's how you shim the catch ring if necessary.
Go.
Same thing applies here. This is the outer ring. I have this off. If the gap on the outside is too large, then you bring this outer ring up by putting a shim right down here in the same fashion. Here's the shims that go in here. The same thing, little food grease, stick them on here, fasten it back down, and then check your measurements and make sure you get your stack just right. Now we're ready to install our packing cord. So I have the outer ring upside down. The packing cord goes on this lip. There's a seam on these packing cords. I like to align it with one of the holes and put it facing the rear. Just a detail that I like to pay attention to. But anyway, this packing cord, there's a radius on the outside and then there's some grippers on the inside. So you just get this up here like this, and these little gripper grooves go towards the inside, and there's a groove here on the outside. It takes a little finagling here to get it on, but just take your time. Don't stretch it, because if you do, it's going to be too long. So when it's all installed correctly, that's how it should look. The seam is at one of the holes. We'll put that facing backwards, like I said. And then the outside of it has this radius on it. So what I'm going to do now is, that needs to go down just a hair more. And what I like to do is put a little bit of food grease on this, because when you push it down, if this rubber, this is actually silicone, if the silicone grips the top sheet metal of the machine, sometimes it gets stuck. So I like to put a little grease, so when you push it down, the seal profile just smoothly goes out and it sits in the right place. So I'm going to put a little food grease on here right now. Just a little, that's all you need. Like that. And you got to be careful putting this on, not to disrupt your seal. So my seam is, where's the seam? Oh, it's right here in the back. Okay. Carefully put this back into place like that. Line up your holes just like that. Reinstall your bolts. And you want to tighten this up in a crisscross pattern. We'll snug them up here and then pull it down. And go around and tighten them all up. Just like that. And you can see how this seal profile, this packing cord, just pushed out nice like that, and it's not rolled up underneath itself at all. And our seam is in the back. Go. All right, also I do like to take this little half round here, this cutout, I like to take a little bit of silicone. It doesn't matter, just a good grade silicone, and just put a little bit in there like that. Go around here, same thing. Like that. This back one's sometimes a little tricky. And just like that, and one more. Just like that. Now we're ready to install the spring energized seals. These are very fragile precision seals. They have a spring down here in the bottom, and this flat edge, it has a little groove on it that always goes up facing the bottom of the catch ring, just like that. That's how the seal goes in. Okay, so the small seal goes in without a problem, but I'm going to give you a serious tip here, and if you've ever done one of these before, you've struggled with it. In the outer seal, we've found that it works much better if you put it in hot water and expand it out, because I'll tell you the reason. I've tried both seals. We manufacture all these parts. I've tried the OEM parts, and they react in the very same way. These little half round cutouts here for these socket head cap screws, if the ring's a little small, it'll get caught here and it will have a tendency to roll the seal. And if this seal gets rolled, it's junk. You got to throw it out and get a new one. And these are expensive seals. These are, better part of, $300 to $400 each. So it's very important that you do this right the first time. So that's how the seals get installed. That one's been in the hot water. So what we're going to do now is we're going to grease these up good with some food grease. We're going to put them in place, and we're going to push these seals into place with the catch ring. So it's very important that you get this right. All right, so here we go. So now we're just applying food grease to the spring energized seal. I already did the small one, it's in there. This is the one that was in the hot water. So you just want a coat of food grease all over this guy. Just like that. And place that in the groove just like that. And before that cools down too much, we want to take our catch ring right here, set it in place, install the bolts, and it's important on this guy to go in a crisscross pattern. So we'll just snug them up. And I like to just get the bolts to where they're just starting to tighten, and then visually go around and look at the seal and make sure that it all looks good. It's not out of the groove at all. And then we'll just start going quarter turn on each one of these bolts. And if you feel any real binding, stop and take the catch ring off. Something is hung up. So you want to make sure that these go down nice and even. And sometimes you may even hear a little bit of a pop like that. And that's fine, that's normal. Those springs popping into that groove, but that's why we put the lubrication on it so it finds its home. So just snug them up like that. Okay. So now to test and make sure the spring energizer, the spring energized seals are installed properly. When we loosen these bolts, if the seals are working as they should, this catch ring will lift up. So when I start loosening it, you'll see that gap start to increase. And that way you know these are working correctly. See it come up? That came up, and that came up. So now, don't ever use your finger or a hammer or a piece of plastic with a hammer to install these. You will damage the sealing surface. So it's always best to use the catch ring, use a nice ground finish to push them into place. And I do have anti-seize on these bolts as well, as you can see here. So now we pull our catch ring off and we inspect and make sure that our work is proper. So we visually inspect the seal, make sure we didn't roll any surfaces. And sometimes you'll get a little sliver of this material that comes off. That's normal. It just, sometimes when it pushes in the groove, it takes a little piece of that material off. That's totally normal. So this is a good time just to inspect it and make sure that everything is as it should be. And everything is looking good. And again, you want to make sure that this surface continues to stay very clean. And everything looks great. So now we can go ahead and reassemble the catch ring for the final time. And then we'll move on to the next step. So we're reinstalling the catch ring for the final time. And you can see how large this gap is. Those spring energized seals are pushing against the bottom of the catch ring, and that's the design of the seal. And these seals should be changed every 6 months, minimum. So every 6 months you should take this all apart, or I shouldn't say take it all apart, pull the catch ring off, replace the seals, reinstall the seals. You can visually inspect inside here, make sure that everything looks okay. You don't have any play in the bearing. And so now we can just tighten these up all the way around. Just like that. Spring energized seals are in, everything is completed. Now we're going to go ahead and put these plastic caps in. So now we're going to put these plastic caps in. I use a piece of acetal, just a piece of plastic, and you want to just try to keep it as straight as possible and then tap on it. And then usually there's some pieces of plastic that come off when you push these into place, which we'll come back and tune all that up. This is how it should look when everything is installed correctly. Now that we have everything complete, it's time to fill the inner cavity with grease. So it's important that you take this relief valve out, which we've done. We've cleaned this whole passageway out and the whole cavity's clean. And I've also replaced this check valve because the spring was rusted closed. It's very important that you check your relief valve because there's a spring with a little steel ball in here, and if it's frozen shut and you're over pressurizing with a grease gun, you're going to just blow it right by all of these seals in here. So it's very important that you check that. But we always like to take it out and push the grease through, and until you get good grease coming out of this exit port. And then after that, we're just going to grease it static right now, not running. And then after we get it full, you want to turn the machine on about 20 to 30%. And this can all be closed. Obviously, it has to be closed, the horn holder on for safeties. And you want to continue to grease this until you get grease out of here with everything operating. But right now, we're going to just get started on filling this up. I highly recommend a battery-operated grease gun. The old hand crank, you'll get a heck of a good workout. Also you want to use some really good high quality food grease. I highly suggest you getting it from us. We have a very, very superior product at a reasonable price. And with all of these parts, these are all available on our website. We manufacture all of these and we keep them all in stock as well. So here we go, we're gonna start greasing. So our grease fitting is on. So here comes our grease. So at this point, go ahead and wipe that off. And we're going to reinstall our pressure relief valve. And again, in the field, you want to validate your pressure relief valve and make sure it works properly. And you can also check these relief valves. I should have showed you before I got it all full of grease. But in the end here, you can take a small pick, like a small scribe, and push in and out, and there's a little ball bearing in there that should move. And make sure, maybe spray some WD-40 on that and make sure it's free and that you can feel that spring tension. As I said, this is a brand new one, so we're going to go ahead and put this back in and then pressure it up, and we should get good grease coming out of this relief valve. Now we have back pressure with the relief valve in place. So I'm good with that for now. And our next step would be to, once you get power to the machine, like I said, make sure you reconnect your grease fitting and get the machine in straight stuff mode and hit the knee lever so everything is spinning, and continue to grease this until you get good grease coming out of here, so everything is good and full and everything's rotating and it's fully greased properly. It's a very important tip, and you got to grease these things daily. On here, I go into countless plants, and I ask if they grease these, and they say, yeah, we grease them all the time. And I put a grease gun and a fitting on here, and I'll put a full cartridge or maybe even 2 in it before I even get anything coming out. And usually the grease that comes out is just black, and it's not as it should be. So you always want to get fairly white food grease coming out of this exit port. So now we're going to move on to installing the urethane seals, and we're going to replace this slide ring as well. That's all the parts that come in this top end kit. You should get this whole region serviced. As you can see, this is not in good shape, so I'm going to show you how to put this in properly. Now we're going to change the slide ring, and I'm going to point a couple of things out here to you. So a lot of times they get cracks in them, just like you see. There's a crack here, here, here. And the reason for these cracks is people over tighten these countersunk screws. They wrench on them, and it puts a lot of stress on the part, and it cracks. So it's important to not over tighten these. And you want to use some blue Loctite to put these in. Oh, as you can see, it's very broken. Sometimes that'll come out just like that. I like to put a piece of cardboard over the nice clean work that we just did so you don't drop a bunch of stuff in there. And sometimes there's a shim down here. I usually suggest running these without a shim. I don't know who shimmed this for what reason and how they did it, but I'll explain to you how this all works. These are like razor blades, so be very careful. So I'm going to put this back together with no shim in it. So I'm going to clean this up now. Now we're ready to install the new slide ring. I've cleaned this all out real good with some Scotch-Brite, some brake clean. I get these threads all good and clean. I cleaned all the screws. You want to use a little bit of blue Loctite on each one of these screws. Just like that. And this removal half round here, this little pocket, goes at the 3 o'clock position, or close to it. Let's see, where's our holes? Right there. That's where it goes. Now that I have them all bottomed out, I'm just going to go and I'm just going to snug them lightly. Lightly snug it. That's it. Let the Loctite do its job, and you don't over stress the material. And that's it. So now we have everything installed here. Let me explain why I don't recommend using a shim in here. And you can shim it if you want, but I typically don't. And how you would shim it is put the slide ring in, put your in-feed scroll, close your hopper, and then you step up on the step or a ladder and you grab the shaft on the infeed scroll and you can move it around. If there's a bunch of play in it, you can shim this down to where you take that play out and tighten it up. What I would rather have people do is run no shim, and before, while production is setting this machine up, put a good coat of food grease on this surface and also on your urethane seals here. Oops, this guy goes down here. So I'm gonna push the urethane seals into place now. But I would rather have a nice coat of food grease on everything, all these wear parts. It's really important to do that. And so many people assemble these dry and they just smoke these slide rings. It needs lubrication, because the only lubrication it gets is the lubrication they put in it pre-production. It's going to run for hours and hours dry on there, and it just tears it up. So it's important to lubricate all of these wear components. I should have put a little food grease on this before I put it in. But you can just push it in there like that, all the way around. Just like that. And then the top one here, same. It goes in just like that. And again, I can't stress enough to lubricate all of these urethane rubber parts and the slide ring before you assemble. So that's the whole top end kit right there, all installed properly, and you're ready for production now. Again, we would start this machine and grease it while everything's operating, and make sure that you got grease coming out of here. So that's a wrap for the top end kit for HP C and E machines. On the E machines, it's going to be a HP 7 all the way through to an HP 30E. And then on a C machine, if you have an older hydraulic machine, the HP 10Cs and the HP 15Cs is going to be the same. Exact same setup. Just take your time. It's not a real difficult project, but take your time, and it should go pretty smooth. If you ever have any questions, feel free to give us a call, shoot us an email. We'd be glad to help you. And again, all these parts we manufacture here in California. So feel free to reach out to us, get a quote on these parts. And again, we would help you through this whole process. Thank you for watching.